Everyone is having a lovely Thursday, and so are we. It is 8 p.m. Central Time. We are Night Terrors Radio. As ever, I'm your vigilant host, Ash Hamilton of horror-fix.com. I've got my co-host, Sean Ed, with me tonight. Hope you're doing well, Sean.
Very well. Thank you.
You're looking cherubic, as always.
Thank you.
I also have Rob Pistilli. I'd say cherubic, and I'll find another word to describe you, Rob, that hopefully won't betray the deep and forbidden love that I have for you. We have Rob Pistilli on, as always, representing the East Coast, but we've got some backup tonight. We have Brian Cano of Paranormal Con on Camera and author of the new book, which I'm just going to go ahead and say I think you're going to get back to that #1 new release tonight in Supernaturalism on Amazon. Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life. We are going to have a great time with Brian tonight. Thank you so much for spending this evening with us.
Oh, it's great to be here, guys. So what's going on? What are we doing? Let's get this thing rolling.
So what we love to do is we love to give our audience a little bit of a taste of what's happening out there in the world, and nothing that's going to make us cry, weep, or look for fallout shelters just yet. What we are going to do is we're going to go straight to some of the weirdest news that we have as we roll our nice little news in. Okay, so now we got a couple great news stories tonight, and one that has a taste of celebrity to it.
Yeah, big taste of celebrity. So Demi Lovato, Disney, Disney's Demi, she has come out and asked that we no longer refer to extraterrestrial visitors as aliens. She says that using the term aliens is derogatory, it's demeaning, and she would like us all to refer to them simply as ETs. So at this particular point in time, I'm a little lost, because isn't that like subgenreing the visitors from other planets? I mean, now everybody has to be, Elliot and all that. That's the route we're going.
I just think if the United Federation of Planets was looking for an ambassador, why in the world did they go and tap Demi Lovato?
Right.
There's some more worthwhile candidates.
And, she goes on to say that, she's been a believer in this her whole life. And she just thought that she was in a position with where her career is now to speak out on behalf of our intergalactic brethren.
We've got some people in the chat room already talking about the fact that we think that someone says they think that she should actually just be, and we're going to be blunt. Our chat room thinks she should be thrown in a river. That's what they're saying. They're going straight past go. They're not collecting $200, and they're just saying Demi Lovato needs to be floating downstream because apparently she cannot represent anyone anymore.
Huh.
That's where we're at with Demi Lovato.
I don't know. I know she's good friends with Paris Hilton. I mean, isn't that count?
Well, then the street cred definitely goes up because those two blue collar workers definitely have their finger on the pulse.
Right. I mean, they know exactly what's going on around the world at all times. They're completely in touch with reality and in normalcy at all times.
It's been a long time
Rob,
since I've heard those two terms.
I think it's the fact that it's a total language generational thing. We're all old fogies, and I think that maybe she sees the extraterrestrial as that's so extra, and it's a lingo thing that maybe we just don't get.
They're so extraterrestrial. I kind of like
so
that.
I think that's going to be the sequel that eventually Demi Lovato will star in. Will be ET2, the so extraterrestrial.
Well, our chat room is already saying that she definitely needs to phone home or go home. I can't tell which one they're saying.
One of the two. Personally thought that the best take on ET was Cheech and Chong when he was Eddie Torres, the extra testicle. That was still.
Well, I do think the ET species was here looking for plant life.
I do think so too.
Oh, this could possibly explain why she feels the way she does. Remember, she's of that elite celebrity, so they can afford the good drugs.
Right.
We don't get that same stuff. So
they've got stuff we'll never even know the street value of. It's upper echelon.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, I don't know. I just think that if we start calling them all ET, Predator's going to be mad.
Yeah.
Starman's going to be mad.
Oh, yeah.
Mac from Mac and Me is going to be mad.
Oh, we don't care about Mac. That doesn't exist. We
no
try to
love
forget
for
that.
Mac and Me?
Oh, gosh.
Oh.
Okay, so obviously Demi Lovato is in her own stratosphere at this moment. What is our other news segment, Sean Ed? What do we got going on tonight?
Well, so this one was on the New York Post and a couple of them. Evidently, a couple days ago, they reported that in Pakistan, they have seen a large bulging triangular UFO that's been hanging out for not a few minutes, not even an hour, but 2 hours that they filmed this. And there was people all over the city that managed to film this large bulging, and they use that in big print.
You put so much emphasis on the word bulging.
Yes,
I think our description of the UFO scares me more than if I'd actually seen it.
So obviously it's gray sweatpants season for aliens, and that's where we're going with this. So,
you know,
is Willem Dafoe on board? Remember, he was described as confusingly large.
They're coming out of COVID. You know, all the Reese's Pieces.
Oh yeah.
They're having trouble with their identities now. We don't know what to call them.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is how many 40-plus-year-old stay-at-home moms now are just spreading out Reese's Pieces on their lawn for this large bulging UFO?
Well, and here's what's funny, guys, is that actually I was looking over the article again, and I didn't notice this until just now. That part of it is talking about a gentleman who, and I don't even try to butcher his name, but he filmed it for 2 hours on his phone. And it says that the 33-year-old was mesmerized by the object, and the clip now has Skywatcher's tongue wagging. So I think those choice of words is leading to something.
There's some colorful alliterations in that article.
Yeah. It's very sexy UFOlogy.
Well, it is the New York Post.
It is.
It is. Yeah,
It's,
definitely.
It doesn't get much more, crazy headline-ish than the New York Post.
Well, I can't thank you guys so much, for educating our audience on what's going out there in the world, because these really are the news topics that we need to hear about. We have a great show lined up. We can't wait to pick the brain of Brian tonight. We can't thank him enough for being on with us. And also, Brian, you are a fellow New Yorker, correct?
I am. I'm a lifelong resident of New York City, specifically Staten Island.
So I love the fact that we've got two representatives of the East Coast tonight. I actually lived on the East Coast for almost 12 years before moving back to middle America. So we've got some representation going on, definitely. When I get mad enough, the Jersey comes out. It will happen.
It's funny how you say representation and it's 4 white guys on a meeting.
Right. We're nothing if not diverse here on Night Terrors Radio.
We are diverse here.
Right. Well, wait a minute. No, we all have goatees. I'll go shave.
Yes. Yeah.
I am bald. I don't know if that's a subset that we can promote.
Yeah.
I've got glasses.
So, again, welcome, Brian. Thank you for coming on tonight. You've got so much going on. You've got a book that is selling extremely, extremely well on Amazon. You are one of the more visible components of the television show series that is now, and it's going on its 5th season, Paranormal Caught on Camera. You're a very, very active guy in this industry.
Yeah, I've always endeavored to what we call show up strong, and I can't do things half-assed, and as a consequence of that, I'm always doing multiple projects. And for 11 years, when I got out of college, I found myself working at an ad agency, and something about it changed my DNA, changed the way my brain worked, and I can't do any less than 3 things at any one time. I have to be multitasking, doing multiple things. And it has to be on a tight deadline where the stress is high. If you give me 2 weeks to do something that, oh, we've got time, don't worry about it, my brain will shut off. And the night before, I'll be like, gotta get to it. And that's when the genius comes out. But it's difficult. But yeah, I'm working on lots of things at all times.
You know, I recently watched a TED Talk that talked about the brilliance of procrastination and the fact that there's this group of people who, and a lot of them are actual, they're scholars. These are people who not only work in a collegiate fashion, but these are people who also are, Silicon Valley pioneers that have got together to discuss the importance of the brilliance that comes up in the last hour.
It's true. Something about desperation, something about a ticking clock, something about I won't get paid if I don't finish this.
Right? There are those determining factors. Pay being the ever dangling carrot. Definitely. That's something we got to think about there at the 11th hour.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So we were talking a little bit before we went on the air, and it was absolutely a brilliant conversation that the audience will never get to hear, unfortunately. But one thing that
the one thing I want to know is, are we allowed to give out we did figure out that whole cure thing. Are we going to give that out? Are we going to?
Oh. No. I'm going to push it right to Demi Lovato's Instagram.
Okay, yeah. Perfect.
I'm going to let her keep on being the ambassador for that.
Perfect.
She's assumed the mantle. I'm not gonna steal her thunder tonight. It's not gonna happen.
Nope. Give her the crown and let her run with it.
We had talked a little bit about when you're in a particular, and I'm using industry as a very loose term here, but when you have a particular specific interest for a very long time, there are highs and lows. There are instances where your interest gets rejuvenated, and then there are instances where you're looking for that next piece of evidence, and you're sort of searching for that. Especially because you've been in the industry now for over 20 years, correct, Brian?
Correct.
And my question to you is, and I know that this is sort of like fundamental, let's get to know Brian Cano, but you were talking about having an interest like when you were a child. What was that moment, though? That moment where you really understood this is more than an interest. This is a pursuit. Like, when did that happen?
That's a good question. I feel like the paranormal, at least for me anyway, I didn't realize this was going to be something that would be such a big part of my life, something that would define me, would point to me, and something that I'd be involved in for the past 2 decades in the way that I have. Sometimes I feel like I'm still figuring it out. And as I look back, and 2 decades are behind me, and I've got a book, a card game, I've been on countless TV shows. Sometimes I think, is this my life? How did I get here? I couldn't have planned it this way. I feel like I sort of ended up here. And you get a lot of people that when this happens, they say it was a calling, or the one thing that I can't stand, everything happens for a reason. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But looking back on all the choices that have gotten me here, yeah, there were times where I got tired. There were times where I felt like walking away, and there were times where I did walk away, but something did pull me back. And the one thing that I love about the paranormal, that probably whatever side of the line, skeptic or believer that you stand on, what the paranormal gives to us, it gives us back a sense of wonder. Now, when you're a child, you've got Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and whatever religion you believe in. You've got it all, and the world is a big, wide, wondrous place. And as you get older, you find out that many of those things on the list are not real. And then you think, okay, well, what am I left with? All right, my childhood was a lie. Thank God for cartoons. What do I do now? So you go to work, you kind of get involved in the grind, you're paying your taxes, you're commuting, and you think, okay, this is life. All right, I'm just gonna play it out for as long as it goes. And then the paranormal comes along and says, yeah, hey, some of those things are real. Like, oh wow, ooh, the discovery of which, or rather the rediscovery of that inner child, of that person that you were before, that when you're a child, you have dreams and hopes. And I remember being a kid watching In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy, and the places they went, the topics they showed, and even the end credits. I would watch it thinking, oh, I'm going to do that one day. Not thinking of how it's going to work, how I'm going to pay for it, what the complexities. With you're a kid, you're like, yep, I want to do that. Now I'm an adult, and I am doing that. I don't know how. I don't know how. Maybe my path was set into the universe when I was a kid, just speaking it aloud. I'm going to do that. The universe said, oh, okay, Brian is going to do that. Let's make that happen. Okay, department, make that happen. Who knows?
And I think that's what one thing that really interested me that you said is that it keeps giving us these breadcrumbs. You know, whenever there are things that obviously, as we, transition into adulthood, we understand, again, talking about things like the Easter Bunny, the female orgasm, when we start realizing that certain things don't exist, the paranormal, however, throws stuff our way and says, look over here. And it sort of consistently does that. And I think, especially in the age now where, equipment, I mean, being a filmmaker, equipment is at its absolute lowest overhead. The thing that you're talking to friends on, the thing that you're posting on social media, often has a camera capable of catching some of the best footage that you could hope for. So we have a show like Paranormal Caught on Camera, which I will say, you can watch seasons of other shows looking for solid video evidence. Watch one episode of Paranormal Caught on Camera, and you'll see 5 instances. So as far as the inception of the show, what was your involvement? What was sort of the genesis of your involvement with that program, Brian?
With Paranormal Caught on Camera, it was just honestly a lucky break. Years before that, I'd been on Haunted Collector with John Zaffis, and it was your typical investigation show. What made us different was that it was centered on haunted objects. So, okay, when that came out, the general public bristled against it because they were used to ghost hunters. And this is how you do it, and you do not diverge from this. Like, oh, haunted items, that's crazy. It took time. People got used to the idea. More shows came out, and I think that the public perception of the paranormal is a lot greater these days, and there's so many shows, and it's really out there in the public eye, so that people no longer have to be afraid to come forward and say, yeah, I saw something, to the point where they're now taking videos, they're sharing videos, they're posting it online. When I first started, there was no YouTube, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was no way to really communicate this stuff. Now, if it happens, 20 seconds later, it's online. We could share at a speed that is staggering these days. So with Paranormal Caught on Camera, for several years after Haunted Collector, I really didn't do any TV. I was focused more on the boots on the ground, in the trenches type investigation and research. And whenever I would get an email from a producer, it would be the same stuff, the same pitch, okay, there's this guy, and by day he does this, he's a cab driver, but by night he's a psychic, and you'll be his tech guy. And anytime I got something like that, I would say, yeah, no, I'll play second fiddle to John Zaffis any day of the week, but this random guy that you're just throwing at me, no. How about he follow me? Yeah. Oh, hello, anybody out there? No, yeah, they didn't want that. So I just kind of did my own thing. But when Paranormal Caught on Camera wrote me, they said, well, you're going to be watching video clips. And the first thing that popped into my head was, those shows, they used to be on Court TV, and they usually would dig up these C and D list actors, like anybody who's still alive from Different Strokes or something like that. And they would watch these crazy videos, and it would cut to them, and they'd be like, damn. And it's like silly
like
sound
the VH1
effects.
Pop-up shows, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I assumed it was going to be like that. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to be on TV that badly. But I asked, okay, well, who else is going to be involved? And they gave me some names, and some I knew, some I didn't. But one of the names that popped out was Rosemary Ellen Guiley. And anybody worth their salt in the paranormal knows that name. She's written dozens of books, and she's an excellent researcher. And sadly, she passed several years ago. But when I saw her name on the cast list. I said, yeah, I'm in. Whatever I have to do, I'm in. So and the rest is history. And we filmed our first episode on Halloween in 2019.
Oh wow.
I have do you find that it is harder to tell people that what they captured isn't something, or harder to tell people that what they captured is something?
I think it would be the first, because nobody comes to you with a video to say, here, I want you to tell me this is nothing. I'll go places and I could be there for a non-paranormal reason. I could be there trying on a shirt or getting a burger, and someone will be, oh, hold on a second, I got a picture to show you. They're not there, and for the most part, it's not even like they want my opinion. They just want to share it. They show me the picture, they tell me a 20-minute story, and I'm thinking, is there a question coming at all? Do you want me to evaluate this? But they just want to share it, and I think that's great. We live in an age now where people can share those things. And as far as Paranormal Caught on Camera goes, it's not paranormal evidence you must believe. It's Paranormal Caught on Camera. Here's the clip. Let's talk about it. And some of the clips I don't believe in, and some of the other commentators we don't stand behind, but it gets that conversation started. And since I've been on the show, when I first got on, I was mostly a ghosts and spirits guy. But because there's so many different categories, I now know more about ufology, cryptozoology, and other mysteries that are out there under the umbrella of the paranormal. And that's because I was forced to research it in preparation to go on camera and to say something intelligent. But it's great. It's made me a stronger investigator, a better researcher.
See, I look at I always tell people that ask questions about the paranormal, I say, listen, paranormal, it just means beyond the normal, above the normal. It doesn't mean ghosts. It doesn't mean UFOs. It doesn't mean this. It kind of encompasses all of it. So I'm glad that you brought that out, that you said that, because it is a broad field, and we do need to kind of have representation of all of that, and I think that's where your show succeeds the most, is that it carries that representation. It gives an opportunity for all fields.
And it's in addition to that, we get clips from all over the world. So that shows that regardless of geopolitical standings, regardless of language barriers, regardless of lines drawn on a map, we're all looking, we're all searching, we're all questioning what comes next, or what is that, or we might not speak the same language, but when I watch a Russian video of somebody exploring a house, or something that comes from the Middle East, and I hear them praying as they're still going through an abandoned place, it's like, okay, there's a commonality there. We're all curious by nature. We all want to know what's going on in our world that we can't necessarily see. And some of the things that we might discover out there might go by different names. In the West, it's a demon. In the Middle East, it's a jinn. Maybe in other parts, it's neither, and it's extraterrestrial in nature. Maybe it's multidimensional. Bigfoot, we used to think, hairy guy in the woods, but now we think, all right, maybe the reason we haven't found concrete evidence is that he's not always here. Maybe he shifts dimensions. Maybe he isn't native to this plane. And the fact that people are even considering those options means that we're not getting evidence per se, but we're maturing in the way we think about it.
I also think that some of these theories that we have, especially when we start looking at something interdimensional, is we're starting strangely to align with a lot of modern science. And that was something that I never felt that we were always sort of parallel to, was that those worlds were so very far apart. But it seems that the more we take a look at the physics of the subatom, when we start looking at just how infinitely small things are, we start looking at this idea of, well, this might be another universe. This might be something from a different universe. And now we've got sort of the paranormal community going, we knew this. We've been saying this all along. Of course this is viable. This is something that happens. So do you sort of see, these paths maybe a little bit closer than they used to be? Ryan?
Oh, the paths. Talk about things in quantum physics like the uncertainty principle. You talk about quantum entanglement. You talk about strange attractors. We often think about the exploration of science and the universe as in going out, going further, going into space and going beyond, when sometimes we just have to stay here and go within. And I think pop culture is a very strong mascot for this. I mean, it took Marvel and Ant-Man to get people to think about quantum realms in a way that you could talk about it, and even if you can't fully understand it, you could at least go, oh yeah, I kind of get that. Okay, yeah, it's really small and time is different there. This could account for time loops and schisms if we're going to talk about the space-time continuum, that, all right, the human brain needs to conceive of time as linear for us to not go insane. But if it's all happening all at once simultaneously, what does this mean for our paranormal realms? What does this mean for things that we assume are in one category, but maybe might be somewhere else? And you talk paranormal, again, I'll rewind it to In Search Of. The things they were talking about then was the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, ghosts. And now today you have people talking about Slenderman and Corn Man. And you're like, well, these things don't exist. But hey, when I was a kid, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny existed. And do they? And on the show, we talk about tulpas a lot, that the more you conceive of something, the more you talk about all that energy that's being put into it. Like, all right, yeah, let's take Santa Claus. Even if he's not a physical person that does the things that we all celebrate him for, he exists in some way because he's meaningful to so many people. The latest thing that I've been obsessed with is something called Corn Man, and it's a ridiculous notion. Once you see him, you become him. It's he's got a peg leg, and it's ridiculous. I can't stop talking about him. He doesn't exist. But the more I talk about him,
origins of Corn Man, is this like a creepypasta, or
it's actually
it sounds like a high school prank and not a good one.
It's hysterical. I spent a day obsessed with it, and this is a radical left turn from the topic, but the whole point is that I got obsessed this one day with this one concept, and everyone that I met, I was, oh, you got to see this. Here, check this out. It's now out there in the world, and maybe like a telephone game, like, all right, let's bring it back to Slenderman. All right, we know Slenderman was created on an online contest. There is no Slenderman. However, we get videos on Paranormal Caught on Camera that say they saw him, to the point where I'm telling the producers, we can't air this. We know it doesn't exist. But to those people out there in that field, or in that house, or in the documented true crime case where these girls committed murders or attempted murders in his name, sounds pretty real to me.
And that's almost getting into old school magic, is this idea of devoting time or devoting an offering to manifest something. So this really isn't, this new concept, especially when you're talking about tulpas and thought forms. Like, the concept has been around for a while of putting your faith, your belief in something, and then that thing will manifest itself.
Well, this goes back to an experiment done in the 1970s by a Canadian parapsychological group. It's called the Philip experiment, where they said, all right, we're going to do research into EVPs. Where do they come from? Well, we don't know who we're talking to, so let's make up someone. And they fabricated a personality, and they said, all right, his name is Philip. This is what he likes. This is what he does. This is who he knows. This is who he's related to. And we'll just ask questions to the void. And eventually, Philip responded. So, okay, what does that mean? That could mean several different things, that either they manifested them with their intent and their energy, or it's a belief of mine that sometimes, because spirits just want their stories told, or they want to be paid attention to, they want to be acknowledged. If someone is in a room just asking for Philip, and there's 6 other ghosts standing there like, hey, how come he doesn't talk to us? One of them eventually could go, yeah, I'm Philip. Yep, hi, I'm Philip, I'm here.
Right, yeah.
What can I do for you?
Yeah.
Do you think that can also go in reverse? Now, what I mean is, a theory that I've held for a long time is that the reason that children have these paranormal experiences and things like that is because they have not been told enough times that those things are not real. So do you think that also, it can go backwards, where we can put the energy out there to create something? Can we take the energy away to pull it back?
Well, I think just as we get older and we're told to grow up, that, yeah, how many people who had imaginary friends, those friends weren't imaginary. Maybe they were spirits. Maybe they were some kind of something that now we actively look for. Whereas when we were young, we didn't have to look for them. It just showed up and said, hi, want to play? Now, to get rid of, to use intent to banish, yeah, sure, why not? For my entirety of my investigative career, people always ask me, hey, Brian, what do you do to protect yourselves? Has anything ever followed you home? And my answer was like, I'm not as diligent as I should be. I don't always protect, and I don't always close down. And I'm a better do as I say, not as I do person in that respect. But when I come home, this is my safe zone. I'm kind of oblivious. I ignore things. So if a spirit did follow me home and started knocking things over or going, ooh, or trying to make contact, I would probably ignore it or miss the signals, so that eventually they would get tired and go, yeah, I'm not getting anything from this guy. I'm going to go back to the creepy place and hop on with somebody else. So in that respect, yeah, I play the ostrich. I put my head in the sand and hope it goes away. But it's not even that I'm hoping it goes away. I just don't pay attention. So I think intent is a big part of it. And for the most part, the spirits that really cause problems, I think, have enough energy to be allowed to do that. Otherwise, we would be seeing spirits every day, left, right, and center.
I'm switch gears for just a moment here. Something I've been very curious about that I wanted to talk to you about, Brian, was on Paranormal Cotton Camera, the process. Are you all, at least to the best of your knowledge, are you all getting sent the same videos, commenting on them, and then they sort of extrapolate that? Are you guys getting different videos? Like, what is the process for you as far as how they're filming the show?
Oh man, how many videos do you think there are to disseminate amongst the people? I've
all
got
of them.
I've got notes that I take. We all get the same videos because there's only, that's a lot of work for the producers to do. So we all get the video sheets. We have to watch all the videos, and then they ask us questions, and they say, okay, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What could it be? And it's up to us to react to it and to give our opinion on what it could be. Now, here's the thing. We all are coming from different perspectives in the paranormal. So if you notice, there are certain people on the show who they always are their go-tos to say certain things. So there's always like kind of one funny guy, and that was Ben Kissel in the first couple of seasons. Then you had Rachel come on, and they always would say the quirky things that got you laughing, but got you thinking. They cut to the Marks from Weird, New Jersey to be like, wow, that was something else. Oh, wow, that was crazy. That was amazing. You cut to me for a long-winded explanation about, well, perhaps out in the stars, and we all have our roles. But that being said, we all comment on all of the same videos. And then God bless those editors and the producers. They have to figure out, okay, out of all these responses, who are we going to use on the show?
Right. Well, just be thankful there's not the guy that is going, damn, because VH1 puts that guy on every single response.
Yep, everyone.
There is another show on our channel that has 3 of those. So yeah, check.
We have to say, according to the chat room, they would like us to use the word bulging more.
I've seen that mentioned multiple times. I've also seen that they've worked themselves into a frenzy over the idea of Corn Man.
Yes, Corn Man.
So congratulations.
Spell is complete.
Well, remember, we actually, Ash, you and I actually bought Lizard Man shirts.
We do. We have our matching Lizard Man shirts. This is when we get together and do each other's hair and talk about boys. We wear our matching Lizard Man shirts.
So if there's a Corn Man shirt, I'm in.
So my admission is, first of all, I watch Paranormal Cano Camera religiously. And there is a clip that I have to say, out of everything I've seen, there is one, and I'm also a huge fan of horror films. I know way too much about horror films. So as far as, chills running up your spine, goosebumps, things of that nature. I'm a hard sell. I'm very interested, but it's difficult to get under my skin. However,
is it a bulging knowledge? Is it a bulging knowledge?
It's knowing that Willem Dafoe is confusingly large. There's one clip that I will tell people about, and I'm like, you got to see this thing. And this is the one clip that had me at about 2:00 in the morning looking over my shoulder. So there was a guy that was starting to hear things like in his apartment, and his wife was gone. There was stuff he was hearing in the bathroom. He was hearing a door shut. So he decided that he was going to exit the house/apartment because things were getting a little crazy. He goes back inside. A lot of the cabinets are open. Things are sort of toppled over. Oh, that's it.
The upside down head.
The upside down head. That freaked me out so badly. And I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's just, that juxtaposition, the fact that, you're looking for something and then you don't expect it to be upside down. It had like sort of these hollow looking eyes. I find that clip so chilling, Brian, that's that one video, although all of them interest me and sort of, mentally sort of excite me, that one is the one that I just find bone chilling.
Well, one of the questions we get asked pretty much on every clip is, if you were there, what would you do? And in that specific case, all right, what would I do? I don't know. In a lot of the situations when it comes to investigations or haunted houses and they hear a noise and they run out, I'm like, no, you're running the wrong way. Run towards it. But for this guy, he's alone in the house. I'm thinking, well, maybe not go towards it. Maybe go to the shed, get a shovel, get something, something to protect yourself, and then go back in. I mean, that's a home invasion that he was not prepared for. And yeah, it does look creepy because it's not just a peek around. It's not something that's skittering across the floor. It is defying gravity, seemingly. So what could he do? And I think that's where the horror aspect comes from it, that it's just so inhuman.
That was absolutely terrifying, which brings me to my next question. Now, our humor gets even more highbrow. I know you probably wouldn't expect it, Brian.
Are we really doing this?
Of course we're doing it. We have to do it every show.
Okay.
So what we have here is we have a gauge or a meter to which we ask our guests the thing that maybe disturbed them, scared them, or was the most outlandish thing they've seen. And this can be either the show or in an investigation, but I give you and shithole meter.
Jesus Christ.
So the Pant meter runs on a 1 to 10 scale. Obviously 10 being the most heaping handful of scare that you could possibly imagine. So give me an 8.5 or a 9, something. And I know that the more you're sort of doing these things, the more that curiosity and being inquisitive sort of takes over fear. But I'm still guessing there had to have been one moment, whether it was just viewing something or whether you were actually there, where it was like, okay, this is chilling, this is bone chilling.
Well, I sure hope you're wearing your shitting pants. You're about to shit your pants.
I've got my brown pants on. I'm ready.
Wait a minute. You're wearing pants?
Don't ask me to stand up.
Wait, this is Zoom. We're not supposed to be wearing pants.
We can't break the fourth wall down here. Not now. It can't happen.
A bulging fourth wall.
No comment. It's tough because you're right. The more you do it, the more you become used to situations. And I've always been very analytical, so I don't react. And producers hate that. Producers want the big reactions. Producers want the bro, dude, and that's not me. When something happens, for most people, there's the fight or flee response. Well, my third option is freeze. I don't fight. I don't flee. I'm just like, and because I'm weighing my options. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to run towards it. I'm not going to fight. Like, let's take this all in. Processing. I'm the Egon in this situation. So that doesn't always work out. So sometimes there's just an overload. And this is actually something I go into in my book, Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life, now available on Amazon.
Soon to be number one.
So hopefully let's get that number one spot.
It's going to be number one again.
In a chapter called The Warning Hand, something happened to me where, in my experiences, I've seen shadow forms, I've seen light forms, I've seen all sorts of phenomena. I've been touched, pushed, scratched. The only thing that I haven't seen is a full-bodied apparition. And to this day, I have yet to see a full-bodied apparition, at least that I'm aware of. I have seen partial-bodied apparition. And in this chapter, The Warning Hands, I come across something that literally reached in to the room I was staying in, pulled the curtain aside, and in a voice that I could only describe as being hollow and coming from somewhere deep underground, threatened me in a way that literally had me going, too bad we can't stay, baby. I'm throwing my clothes on and heading out in the middle of the night. Like, I've never run screaming from a place, but this was very close to it. And it happened in such a way that this voice threatened my life. Said, and again, it was in a moment where I was about to turn in. You're in your sleep clothes, you're feeling very vulnerable, and I'm like, I'm about to go to bed, and this hand just reaches in, and the hand itself was gray and bony, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what's attached to this? And I couldn't see out the window because beyond the window was just the blackness of night and the forest beyond. I couldn't see anything, and this voice, what it said to me, was chilling. I could still remember the way I felt and the circumstances going around me, and it plays in my mind like a movie. But I got to tell you, I can't remember the last time I was so scared.
That's definitely up there in the pants shit meter.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is a solid entry. I love also that you mentioned Egon, because like many of us who have an active interest in the paranormal, there's an affinity for the Ghostbusters. There's something about our introduction to that film and those characters that sticks with us. You have definitely a special affinity for the Ghostbusters, right?
I do, absolutely. I've always been a fan, and I was 10 when it came out. So what I loved about it, and I say this all the time, in 1984, any of the movies that you had prior to that about ghosts or spirits or anything supernatural was doom and gloom and you're going to die. The Omen, The Exorcist, Poltergeist. Like, if you had a problem, it's not I'll solve it. It's you've got to move.
Right, yeah.
Now here comes Ghostbusters. So it's a comedy. So that in itself is different. They handle it with tech, not religion. And the motto is, we're ready to believe you. So in the impressionable mind of a 10-year-old, I'm thinking like, oh, well, that's different. And as a kid, I grew up with the cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters, which even though it was a cartoon, the syndicated version had some very mature content. Science fiction writer J. Michael Straczynski, creator of Babylon 5, was responsible for some very intense episodes. Like they handled Cthulhu, werewolves and
Sam Hain. It was
Sam Hain.
A lot of mythology there.
Yeah, they drew upon a lot of things, and even though they mixed it into the quirky, fun Ghostbusters license, you could tell that whoever was writing this was doing their homework. Like, come on, there was the Necronomicon in an episode, and they were chanting, Cthulhu, Cthulhu. It's like, what's going on? Impressionable young minds. And watching Ghostbusters, 3 out of 4 of them were parapsychologists. I never imagined that years later I would grow up and I would be doing that. These days I teach parapsychology. I'm an investigator. I'm a researcher. I've interacted with some of them. I've met Dan Aykroyd. I've even consulted him for my History of the Paranormal mobile exhibit in some Ghostbusters trivia, where I did research on the Rhines and the Rhine Institute. And I said, hey man, I feel like there's a parallel. And it turns out that the scene in Ghostbusters where they get tossed out of Columbia University was inspired by the Rhines leaving Duke University to go on start and to strike out on their own. So I mean, I'm still learning, but from a very young age, Ghostbusters was it.
Dan Aykroyd's dad was big into the field as well.
Oh yeah.
And the thing that I love about where we're at in pop culture right now is, especially like our generation. I'm 46. So I was able to experience the Ghostbusters when I was young, but I was cognizant enough of some of the humor that had an impact on me as well. And then, you know, I was attached to the cartoon and all these different properties that came out, is that we even got to experience a new film in our lifetime that I have to admit I loved. I loved Afterlife. I thought it was a very romantic soliloquy that harkened back to the first film, and I was a big fan of it. Did you enjoy it, Brian?
I did. I mean, I love the pacing. I love that there was a revisit. I love that behind the scenes it was a passing of director from father to son, and just that end scene. You know, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. Any problem I had with the film in a technical sense, I didn't care because it was Ghostbusters and we finally got more.
Exactly. And I felt the same way. So let's talk about the book. I definitely want to spend some time on the book.
Yes.
So a book is an endeavor. That's an undertaking. So what inspired you to say, okay, I've got all this multimedia, all the things that I've done. I'm doing this book.
I've always wanted to write a book. That was what I went to college for. I wanted to be a writer, and I majored in English. I minored in psychology so that I could have the technical tools and the understanding of the human mind and personality to make believable characters. But, you know, as I intimated before, you get out of college and you got to find a job. You got to start paying rent. And there's real world things that you've got to do. And unless you're a Stephen King or John Grisham, no one was going to pay me to sit at home and write. So that dream was deferred for some time. And when I got into the paranormal, I thought, well, maybe I'll write a book. And people would always ask me, Brian, when's your book coming out? When are you going to write a book? And I would say, I don't know. I don't know what to write about. Is it going to be a technical manual? Is it going to be the history of my group Scared and the places we went to? Is it going to be about haunted objects? And I could never really figure out what the right formula is. And there's other better people than me who were just books left and right coming out with good stuff. I'm like, well, they did it. They don't need another book about Lizzie Borden, or they don't need another book about how to the basics. So what am I going to do? So it finally got to a point where I had just been shut off creatively in that respect. But my creative outlets found purchase in DVDs, filming my own documentaries. I made a card game called The Three Pillars, and I came out with 5 expansions for that. So I was doing creative things, and I found outlet for them. But the book was elusive until just a couple of years ago, when my manager just said, Brian, you've got a lot of stories, and people love to hear them. Why don't you just write about your stories? And something in the simplicity of that request just clicked, and ding, the light bulb went on, and I said, and I started grabbing Post-it notes and going, all right, tell the Eastern State story. Oh, tell the Warning Hand story. Oh, I got to tell about that time at Lizzie Borden, and just all the stories. I'm like, all right, I've got all these stories to tell. I don't need really a concept because these stories are mine. Let me just tell them. And then this Tuesday on my birthday, it's real. I'm honestly still not. It still hasn't sunk in, but Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life is now in the world.
Now, someone in our chat room mentioned that you have a signing coming up in New Jersey.
I do. This Saturday from 1 to 3 in Asbury Park at the Paranormal Books and Curiosities store. I will be there signing copies of Grain of Sand, and I'll be there to meet and take pictures with people.
I have been to the store. It is amazing, by the way.
Cool place.
It is a very, very cool place. Have you been there, Rob?
Yes, I have. Yep.
Now, I wondered, did they still have the museum next door? Because it was a pretty large collection of things.
It's upstairs now.
Oh, it's upstairs now? Okay, yeah.
I remember it being in that little next door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole store has moved over, and now all that stuff is upstairs. And I think it's a better space. It looks a lot nicer.
Well, I urge people to go to the signing because, first of all, I can't wait to read the book. I can't wait to go back to Asbury Park because I absolutely love that store. I loved being there when I was there, and I'd like to see, of course, what they've added to it, and the fact that it's changed over the years, is obviously something pretty exciting for me too. So, what can people expect from the book? I mean, people who sort of know your personality, and what you're known for. What can people expect from the book?
It's a very personal endeavor. And that's the thing. And we were talking about it before the show started, that this week I'm allowing myself to obsessively check the Amazon rankings just to see how it's doing. Because again, this is not just something that I cobbled together and threw out. This is me, Grains of Sand. You are going to get a ticket into my adventures when I was younger, all the different things I've been through. And it's kind of my journey from skeptic to skeptical believer. And it's called Grains of Sand because I always equated each experience that I had in the paranormal like a grain of sand. By itself, it doesn't seem like much. You look at it and you're like, I'm not convinced. And you drop it at your feet. As the years passed and I went on more investigations, I read, I researched, I got mentored, I went to events, formed a group, dissolved a group, grains of sand, all these different grains of sand. And I was still very much holding on to that skeptic's mantle. And I looked down one day, and figuratively speaking, all those grains of sand had formed a beach at my feet. And I had to consider what that meant, that, it's not about each individual one, it's how they all interplay together. So each story is a grain of sand. And the lessons I learned, more often than not, I'd say 9 out of 10, I didn't recognize at the time. It took the passage of many years for me to go, oh, that's what that was about. So if people can read my experiences and apply it to their own life, and it's not meant to convert anyone. I'm not trying to make believers out of everyone, but I want people to understand that the world is a wondrous place. There is still mystery to explore and things to discover.
We've had such a great response from our chat room, from our listeners tonight, that as we talk through these last few minutes of the show, I would like to open up that chat room. So if people have any questions for Brian, please type your questions out. We'll try to get to a couple before we leave for the evening. One question that I have, and this has been interesting to me for a while, especially watching shows like Paranormal Cano on Camera, the shows that relying heavily on audience interaction and, giving people this data, is that we've seen, I believe, a huge shift in just the amount of data and evidence now that people have cameras that are capable of recording video on their person almost 24 hours a day. What do you see as the new breed of investigator that's going to be coming up that has never not had that? How do you think that's going to change for this generation that never had to scour libraries for old Hans Holzer books to find photos of them, but are able to turn on the TV and find any show that's able to provide them with some fantastic evidence?
See, this is what makes me sound old, because then I go into something like, well, back in my day, I had to go to the library and we didn't have millimeters. I had to use baby powder and toy cars and get off my lawn. The people who start today are, like we were talking before, things are a lot quicker. Things are instantaneous. So back then, I would shoot something. It would be on high 8. I'd have to somehow offload it onto a computer somehow. I had to somehow get it. And for me to show it to anyone, I'd have to be like, hey, come on over. I got to show you something. Here, look at this. Now, whoop, okay, film it, post. Now the entire world sees it. And we have an opportunity now for a greater amount of peer review. Now, peer review is not necessarily the court of public opinion, but we have to have all that stuff out there. And Paranormal Cano on Camera might I don't want to say they're paving the way for it, but they're showing people what it could be. Here's all the stuff. Some of it is good, some of it is not, but we're talking about it. And the technology, it still depends on your intent. And even before me, people like and Lorraine Warren would look at me and go, "Oh, you've got it simple." Back in our day, and every generation will have advances that the one before didn't have. So I don't think that's necessarily going to change the field, but it's the intent. And the basic three categories of people out there right now are your tourists, just want to have a scare, and that's fine. You've got your investigators who are doing and going out there and experiencing things, but they're not really doing anything with their data, their information. And you have the researchers. Those are the people who can move the field forward by taking those numbers, taking those figures, and saying, all right, let's get some hard science attached to this if we can.
So go right ahead, Rob. I got a question that was sent directly to me on my Facebook Messenger. Where do you stand on the orb phenomenon?
It always comes back to orbs, doesn't it?
Well, I know where I stand, and I have given my opinion on our show before. This was just someone that I think is probably just trying to piss me off. But
well, it's a good question. It's a question that needs to be asked because it's still perpetuated out there that orbs are a thing. I'm literally, before I came on the show, I'm watching things for Paranormal Caught on Camera. We've begun shooting season 6. That being said, season 5 hasn't started airing yet, so your math isn't wrong. Don't think season 6, what did I miss? Season 5 will air very soon. But I'm watching a clip and they're talking about orbs. Here's my take on them. Here's my opinion. I feel like 99.5% of things that we consider orbs are dust, bugs, moisture, air particles, etc. I will allow for that 0.5% to be mysterious or unknown, but I still have criteria. Does it give off its own light? Does it move in a way that's intelligent? Can it respond to interactions in the room? Is it not just lazily going along a path? Like, there's so many things that can easily explain orbs. And to be honest, I don't know where the genesis of this was, where someone looked at a particle in the air and said, oh, a discarnate intelligence. Where did we make that leap from, oh, well, you see a smiley face in it? No, you don't. Not to say that there isn't activity in the room. I don't believe that orb is evidence of it.
Thank you.
We have another question coming in. So the episode where the older woman was with the little girl in the woods and the little girl starts flying has apparently intrigued our audience. What are your thoughts on that clip?
Oh, back to Russia. That clip stands out in my mind because it seems like whoever was filming was just on a little happy jaunt through a very Grimm's fairy tale like woods and came across somebody doing something that they thought they were alone for. And when they realized they were discovered, they took off. Now, can this be a fakery? Sure. But again, there's 3 words that I apply to every video that I watch, whether I'm skeptical or not. I wasn't there. So it comes down to belief. And in the paranormal, as in life, everything is belief, because we're either believing in a deity or a higher power, or we're believing in the scientists and the learned men who say, this is how it is. This gives you cancer, this doesn't. And then 5 years later, they reverse. So none of us are actually researching these things ourselves. We're putting our faith, we're putting our trust in something or someone else at almost all times. So don't take my word for it, because then that would just be another method of belief. But there's truth lies somewhere in the middle.
You know, not only for us, but for our audience, this is the fastest night on the internet. This hour goes by ever so quickly, Brian. It's hard to believe that we've been talking to you actually for over an hour now. Could we refresh the audience on the name of the book, where they can get it, where, as far as following you on social media, they can go, and how can they learn more?
Yes, you can connect with me on my website, neverstopsearching.com. I'm pretty active on Twitter at Brian J. Cano. And my new book, Grains of Sand, Tales of a Paranormal Life, is available for purchase right now on Amazon.com. And I'm going to be at the Paranormal Bookstore and Curiosities in Asbury Park, New Jersey this Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. And yeah, just drop me a line if you've gotten it. Tell me what you thought of it. I hope you enjoy it. And if you haven't gotten it yet, please share in my adventures. I'd love to share it all with you.
I'm extremely excited. We also have 2 more seasons to look forward to. Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Yes.
Love seeing you on there, Brian. Loved having you on tonight. We would love to have you back because, quite frankly, an hour just barely scratches the surface, I think, of some of the conversations we had this evening. Do you have just a couple moments off the air for us?
I'm sorry? Yes.
Yes. Oh, great. Thank you. Everyone who's been in the chat room tonight, everyone who's sent us individual emails, everyone who's been really, really happy to hear Brian talk tonight. We've got a lot of real positive interaction from our audience. Thank you so much, Brian. Everyone, we will see you next